Hello everyone, I hope you're doing so well and welcome to this little video all about 5 incredible oil paint pigments to try. Also, thank you so much for amazing comments on my last video, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you are new. We'll also be showing some of the oil paintings that I've been working on just behind me, and also, hopefully, if there's time, I will be doing a Simpsons tier list. I'm actually filming on my phone because last week my sound was out of sync on my camera and it actually was something to do with my editor. So I'm just going to adjust the lighting and see, because sometimes I look really washed out when I'm on my phone, and but then other times I feel like the background looks really grainy because I've turned the light down too much. Okay, maybe it's too dark. I get quite worried that actually I look like I'm speaking from a shadow. So the first colour I'm going to talk about is not particularly interesting, but it's the first one on the pile, and it is Blox Green. So I suppose you're thinking, well, what's so amazing about Blox Green? By the way, these pigments I've selected is just my opinion. I have tried a lot of oil paints because I'm very often testing them out. I try so many different brands. I only usually buy 1 or 2 colours at first, and then sometimes I buy more if I really like the brand. So therefore, I feel like I have quite a good overview. There are some brands, by the way, that I haven't tried at all, but hopefully soon I will have tried the majority of brands. So yeah, so Blox Green. Now, I suppose you're thinking, well, what is so amazing about this green? It is just PG7, which is just a standard phthalo green. And a lot of people, some people, don't dig phthalo green because it is very, very blue leaning, and so they prefer to mix with different greens, and some actually prefer Viridian, which is quite close to phthalo green, but I feel like it's not quite as bright, and it's more of a historical colour. So it's been around for a lot longer, and it has a very, I'd say, a slightly less blue leaning bright quality, but they're both very beautiful. So the reason why I chose this colour is because it is mega bright. It is one of the brightest phthalo greens I've ever used, and Blox is an incredibly famous Belgian brand, so you're going to get really high quality from Blox. It is the brand that Dali used to use, but loads of famous artists have used the brand. I don't know if you can see here. Yep, you can see the colour just here. Like putting it there, but it's really supposed to go there. And yeah, so it's a super bright phthalo green. The binder in Blox oil paints is poppy seed oil, which is an expensive oil, so you're paying a little bit more for that. But as I say, it's just an incredible luminous green, and if you're looking for an amazing phthalo green, this is the one. Gamblin's Radiant line. I've mentioned this so many times on my channel, and this is so busted and beaten up. Look, check it out. I've used so much of it, and I had the Radiant Turquoise, but that has gone. It's run out, and I haven't repurchased yet, but I am going to when there's a Gamblin sale, because Gamblin is mega expensive in the UK. And yeah, it is basically a line which is formulated. By the way, this is a mixed colour. This was a single pigment. This is a mixed colour. This is PV19, so magenta, so quinacridone magenta, and then PW6 titanium white, I assume, yep, titanium white, and PW4, which is zinc white. So the Gamblin's Radiant line are pastel shades that are very luminous and great for highlights. So they have Radiant Turquoise, Radiant Magenta, Radiant Yellow, I think, and Radiant Green. So they're a beautiful mixed mixed pigment line. Now, if you don't like mixed pigments, you don't necessarily need these colours, but they are so beautiful. If you like painting flowers, for example, and especially landscapes, especially fantasy art, check them out, because even though you can obviously mix these colours, you can mix pastel shades, it's very easy. Sometimes to have the colour already there made for you, especially if you use it so regularly, it can be very useful. It's a time saver, and actually constantly mixing the same colour over and over again can be a bit tedious. Next up we have an oil paint that I've never spoken about on my channel, but I adore them, and it is the brand Wallace Seymour. Wallace Seymour is, I just adore the packaging as well. Wallace Seymour is like small luxury boutique brand from England, and I believe it's a husband and wife duo that run the brand, and they basically make very small batches of paint. And what I really like about their paints is they source some of their pigments locally. So some of them are from parts of England, Scotland as well, I believe, which I just think is so fascinating. It's an incredible sort of story behind the paints, and they have the most beautiful colours, the most beautiful names for the colours. I believe there's a colour called Mermaid Egg. I mean, how amazing is that? It just makes you want to paint, you know, just thinking about the lovely names. And this one is Azure Blue, and this is such a just vibrant, intense blue. The colours I find are really intense. I have about 5 of them at the moment, and I believe that they do run sales on certain websites like the Art Rec, I think. So I think I heard an email about it the other day. Just to be aware though that this, because it is sort of like a luxury brand, but they make it in small batches, the price is a little bit higher, and also their colours do really sell out because they are so popular, which is understandable. Like, look how amazing this colour is. I also really appreciate the fact that they really do pack a lot of paint in the tube, and I found like some brands, sometimes, mentioning no names, you get a paint, not from one of these brands here by the way, because these are all really high quality, but sometimes when you get a paint and it's like you squeeze the tube and it feels like half of it is air or something, which is like not cool. Whereas this is, you know, it's really good value, even though it's a little bit more expensive, it's good value. And yeah, I also really like the fact that this colour on the label is exactly the same as the colour you get in the tube, which is always really nice, because if you happen to be somewhere where they're selling these colours and you look at the actual label and then you think, yay, I'm going to get this colour, and then when you get it you're like, hey, that's not the colour I was looking at. But that's not the case with this one. So yeah, just a beautiful brand, and I've tried a couple of their mediums as well, and they are in. So next up we have, which one are we going to choose? Only 2 left. Next one we have is Le Franc Bourgeois, and this is really funny because what I don't understand is this is a really famous brand. It's been around for years, but it's so impossible to, I mean, it's not impossible to find, but it's become less easy to find, I think, in England. And for some strange reason, it seems to be very present on Amazon. And I got this paint for, you'll never guess, £3, which I still can't believe, because it's such a high quality paint and it's like an expensive brand. But for some reason they were running lots of different sales on Amazon, and usually when that happens you never see oil paint. I mean, you always see it for other things that nobody wants, but you never actually see it for like luxury oil paint brands. So I was really surprised. So I bought this, and then later I went onto Amazon like a few weeks later, and I found there were other paints that were also on sale from the Franc Bourgeois. So yeah, it's basically, I chose this colour because it is a really, really useful colour. And what I really like about it is it's almost black. So it does actually match up to this colour here. It actually is called olive green. And when I saw it online, I thought, how is this olive green? This is way too dark. And it is really, really dark. But it has this really nice, almost like yellowish, yellow-green undertone. And I didn't take the lid off the other ones, but anyway, you can see how amazing that is. I mean, the sheen on the paint is beautiful. I don't know, I heard somewhere that their binder was soybean oil, which I don't know if that's true, because on the back this says linseed and safflower, which sounds a lot more normal. So I actually saw on YouTube someone said they used soybean oil in their paint. Can anyone confirm that? I find that like really bizarre. But here it actually seems very normal. I detest the Lightfast rating system of oil paints in general, just because it seems each company uses their own different key. So half the time when you're going to look for Lightfast rating, you will get something completely different per brand. So for example, with blocks, you might get a 7 or an 8. Okay, and something about a blue wool scale. Okay, then for Le Franc Bourgeois, you have 3 stars. That's not the same. So that's obviously their system. Then I know for the Japanese brands, they also use some kind of 3 or 4 star rating. Okay, so, you know, ultimately it's just so confusing. I would just want somebody to say, to have on the tube, I just want them to write it. Like, light fastness, excellent. Light fastness, good. Light fastness, bad. This is going to fade very soon. Something like that. So at least that is helpful. Like, you know, just putting random stars everywhere. That doesn't make sense. Okay, so finally we have Williamsburg. Williamsburg, the famous Williamsburg. I can't believe I have put a Williamsburg paint in this video. Anyway, because I have a real strained relationship with Williamsburg oil paints. The reason being, I've only ever owned 2 Williamsburg oil paints. One before, the previous one before this was a gold. I believe it's iridescent gold, I think. They have an iridescent line, which is really nice. I mean, I don't know if the paint is really nice, but I like the fact that they have an iridescent line. I bought the gold oil paint. It was a couple of years ago. and the first few times when I used it, I thought, okay, this paint is really, really runny. Like, really like it was like soup. But I was kind of a bit like, the pigment is really strong, so I liked it, and it mixed well with my other paints, even though, as I say, it was like mixing soup with my paints. But I was still like, okay, it still works as a paint. Like, it adhered well to the canvas. Anyway, after a while, I started to literally pour it on my palette, and it had separated, and I would just get straight oil running out of the tube. There was also a thing with Williamsburg oil paints, is that some of them have a grain. Now, this is because they choose to grind the paint less, so that there are sort of particles of grain in the paint to provide texture. Some artists really love that, particularly abstract artists. They love the grain effect, the textures. I don't like that. But that's my fault, because I should have really checked whether the paint had grain in it or not. So you have to check that before you buy a paint from Williamsburg, otherwise you will be a little bit annoyed probably if it comes with grains in it that you don't want. So anyway, it was all going okay. I mean, the oil had separated from the paint, but I was still able to mix it all together, and it was still working as a gold paint. Anyway, one day I opened up my box where I kept all my oil paints, and that gold paint had leaked all over my other paints. And so I was like, Williamsburg, we are not friends. That gold paint was extremely expensive. In the UK, Williamsburg is very expensive. Not in the US. I think in the US it's cheaper, because obviously it is an American brand. But I paid a lot for that, and it leaked everywhere. And so then a couple of years later, I thought, okay, people rave about Williamsburg, and I do like the intensity of their pigments. So I just adore this colour, Mars Violet. So it's, I think, similar to that really famous colour, Caput Mortem, which was an old historical colour that used to be made from crushed skeleton bones. Oh, they're really fascinating, so morbid, so interesting. But obviously they can't do that anymore. They can't crush people's bones. I presume it was animal bones, by the way. Let's hope so. So now they sort of make it synthetically. This is a synthetic iron oxide, so PR101. The thing is, I don't like the texture of this paint. I did my research and I thought, okay, fine, I'm not going to buy any sort of granular paint again, because I know that I don't like that. So I chose the one that it said on the website, soft butter, or buttery. To me, this paint does not flow really well. I was expecting it to, judging by the last experience of the gold. I thought this is going to be runny. It's not. It's actually really, really thick, and it's quite hard to spread. The colour is absolutely beautiful though. It is a beautiful colour, and because that's why, I mean, if I can talk properly, that is why this colour is in my video, because I think it is absolutely beautiful. I don't know if you can see, it does look a little bit like my top, but it's not actually as reddish. It is more, it leans slightly more towards brown violet. It is a beautiful colour. I just wish that it wasn't so thick, but it's such an amazing colour, as I say, that I just had to include it, even though Williamsburg and I I don't know, I'm not sure we see eye to eye really. I don't know if I'll ever buy another Williamsburg paint, but I have to say that I can understand why people do like the brown. Quickly, because time is getting on, unfortunately, I just wanted to show you this quickly show you this painting that I'm working on, which is of this horse running up this cliffside, and this girl is like in this castle trying to escape, and she's sort of calling her horse. And yeah, so I've just literally glazed on this, so it's really, really wet. And I'm also working on this painting, yeah, it might be quite hard to see, of this wolf and this deer. So this little deer is just wandering around, and all of a sudden, from behind the bushes, it sees this wolf like standing there on top of this rocky rock and is like, oh my gosh, what on earth, where do I go, how do I escape? And the wolf is there howling. So yeah, I hope you like this painting. There's a dragon in the background. I don't know if you can see, this is really in the early stage. Here is a girl fighting the dragon, and she's grabbed her sword. She hasn't started fighting the dragon, it's just appeared from the sea. If you can see there, I'm just going to change the angle. And so she's sort of like ready to face it. Just quickly, I have made this Simpsons tier list. So this is random Simpsons characters. It's not any of the really main Simpsons characters. That goes from very evil to not evil. So start from the bottom, or should we start from the top? Let's start from the top. Okay, so I'm going to start with Mr. Burns. So on my particular list, Mr. Burns comes as number one, very, very evil. I think this goes without saying really. Mr. Burns, such an incredible character, so funny, so witty, but ultimately, you know, he is somewhat a dark character, totally money motivated, and all about his nuclear plant, which obviously cannot be put down as, you know, a positive thing. But yes, I have to do my Mr. Burns impression, which is excellent. So next up in the tier list of very evil, the character Nelson Muntz. Now Nelson to me is one of the worst characters because he's ultimately a school bully, and school bullies should not be given, you know, anything but an evil category. I think that Nelson can be quite endearing in some of the episodes, but unfortunately he's like the leader of the bullies, and they all sort of stand outside school as bullies do and wait for the more, I guess, nerdy or uncool kids, or kids that they perceive are nerdy and uncool, just to sort of like, you know. Okay, so next up we have the evil but not most evil characters. So there's quite a few in this category actually. So the first one is Dr. Nick. Hi everybody! So Dr. Nick is definitely in the very evil, but not the most evil. I tell you why, because in one episode, I do believe, I'm a massive Simpsons fan by the way, obviously this is, I should have said this right at the beginning, it's quite obvious, but I don't think he's like super evil, like as evil as Mr. Burns, because even though he is like one of the most incompetent surgeons on planet Earth, he does actually end up saving Homer's life, even though it was as a result of something that Lisa said, which has helped him with the operation. But still, I feel like his intentions are, you know, quite good maybe in a way, but he's once again like distracted by money. So he just wants the money. He doesn't really care about if somebody like actually survives. He just wants their cash first. B is for bargain. So next in this category of very evil, actually probably a surprising one, is the comic book guy. I think that I might be the only one who thinks this, but I always felt that the comic book guy was really evil, because I feel like when you go into a store, you don't want some smug nerd telling you that, you know, you don't know anything, and that you don't know enough about Star Wars, and that they can rate every movie as being like the worst movie ever. I just feel like, unless it's Star Wars of course, I just think that he is so judgmental, and I think that because he is somebody who works in like a store, it's such a hilarious thing, because when you're going to shop, you want somebody who's like really cheerful and friendly, but you get someone like him who is just so smug and, you know, a know-it-all basically. And next in the very evil category we have Mayor Quimby. I always find Mayor Quimby very funny, but he, once again, like Dr. Nick and Mr. Burns are totally money motivated, so they only really care about money in Springfield. And Mayor Quimby, I think, is particularly evil because he seems to get away with everything, even though he you know, doesn't actually do very much for the town, but he sort of like takes all the bribes and stuff. which I think is pretty evil. So yeah, in this category, just my personal whim, in fact, is Cletus, which I believe his full name is Cletus von Spuckler or something. I don't actually know his full name. But I put him in this category because he's such a minor sort of side character in The Simpsons, but I find it really funny because he is quite evil in the way he's presented. He kind of like walks around in a vest, which, you know, all the time, like he's always in a vest, and like he's just always standing around shouting, "Hey, Ryan Dane!" And he doesn't actually seem to have a job, but he has loads of kids, and obviously the trashy Brandine is always like hanging around, but she doesn't seem to do anything either. So maybe she should be in this category as well, but there wasn't her picture. She was such a side character that she's just like not even pictured in this tier list. Next, we have the moderately evil category. So number one, we have Smithers. So Smithers is a great character, but definitely evil, but you do totally sympathise with him because ultimately, even though he's very much a sort of suck-up type character, you know, those people you see at work always suck up to the boss and everything, you know, not really necessarily very liked. They'll do everything their boss will say, even if it means, you know, firing everyone, they don't care. But with Smithers, because he's in love with Mr. Burns and it is unrequited, because obviously Mr. Burns has, you know, interests elsewhere, is that's sad, you know, that makes you feel like, okay, Smithers is not so bad because, you know, he's full of longing, but it cannot be fulfilled. Next, in the moderately evil category, we have Sideshow Bob, one of the most entertaining characters ever. And of course, Sideshow Bob goes through a number of different changes throughout the series. So he starts off as being totally evil, and then actually you see that there's another side to him, and he does end up saving Bart. So yeah, he definitely has a sort of character arc, and I think that he is not as evil as he first appears in The Simpsons, and is totally, or maybe partly, misunderstood. Yeah, so he does a lot of crazy things, and I think that there are things that he probably lives to regret. Next, we have Sideshow Mel. The only reason I put Sideshow Mel in this category is because I put him in moderately evil because even though he doesn't actually do anything evil, I don't think, he comes up with these sort of like smug, sort of quirky comments, but I just find his character annoying, and I don't know why, because he doesn't really do anything that significant. Maybe that's why I find him annoying, because whenever I see his character, I always think, is he going to go now, and then Sideshow Bob is going to come in and take over? So it was kind of always, I always felt he was like a transition character, and then he just like disappeared. So yeah, I just put him there just for that reason. Next up, we have Agnes Skinner. I do find Agnes Skinner, she's Principal Skinner's mother, and she is definitely in the evil category, because I just remember there's this one episode where Principal Skinner is in the car and he's talking to Superintendent Chalmers, and he's saying how he has to pay his mother for the food he ate as a child, and I just thought that's got to be one of the most evil things for a mother to do ever. And I just think she is so harsh. She has to be the harshest parent figure in The Simpsons. We have a little bit evil. So we first have Moe. I think Moe is a little bit evil. Obviously, his bar is being run in a very illegal sort of way. And he is likeable though, and there's definitely something you feel sorry for him, because he's sort of, again, he's a kind of unlucky character. He does do a couple of evil things though, like when Homer almost breaks up with Marge, I think, or maybe Marge almost leaves Homer. Moe immediately goes round to Marge with flowers. Like, that's kind of harsh, because I thought that Homer and Moe were supposed to be really good friends, but he's like moving in. He's like trying to move in as soon as Homer's out of the picture. I just think that's not a good friend, is it really? I mean, all the things that Homer did for Moe, even though Homer's probably a rubbish friend as well. But we have Chief Wiggum in the slightly evil category. Definitely slightly evil, because Chief Wiggum is one of the most ineffective policemen ever. But he's definitely comical, but, you know, so lazy that the crime probably is rife in that town. And next in the quite evil category, we have Frank Grimes. This is a controversial one, because I know that some people think that Frank Grimes is a hero because he's so misunderstood and he just has a really unlucky life. So he's kind of like a secret hero. because he stands up for everything at the end, and he shows the world that he tells them that he's unfortunate. But the sad thing about Ryan Grimes is that I don't think he's particularly likeable, and that's the funniest part of it all. It's kind of like the sadness of life, where somebody can go through life being really unlucky, but still, and then say it and show, look, like, I am really unlucky and it's not fair, and other people who are actually incompetent have been promoted ahead of me. But then, then somehow, for some reason, despite all that, it just has an unlikable quality that you think, well, I kind of wanted Homer to tell him to get lost. Finally, in the not evil category, there are quite a lot of Simpsons characters are not evil, but I only managed to put 3 in before I had to start filming. So the first one is Professor Frink. Professor Frink, and I do think Professor Frink is, again, a really, really unlucky character with all his sort of great ideas, but they kind of fail or blow up, or yeah, they just seem to all explode. I do hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, as I said before, and I will see you soon. Take care, guys.